Ding! Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is Tuesday, 9 p.m. on the West Coast, where it's fucking hot out here. Welcome to Film Geek Primer Live. I'm your host, John Santo, coming at you live and direct from SoCal. Just over the hill, where it's even warmer than it is here, is Dub, but he has air conditioning. How's it going?
I'm a little cold, not gonna lie. I got this cool breeze blowing on me.
Yeah.
I would turn it down, but all that standing, I just don't see it happening anytime soon.
You're a dick, okay. Also with us is Warren, Mr. Warren. It's Tuesday, so he's lounging.
I'm lounging.
How's everything up in the Bay Area?
Good. I think we're going to get rain tomorrow night or Thursday. I'm sorry, that might be insensitive.
No. That's fine. That's perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine. It's
get a jacket.
I have no one to blame but myself for having my little air conditioning unit back there that's garbage. And you can actually see the windows are open, and possibly, if you pay attention, you'll see homeless people outside my barred windows. I live what is known as the high life. Literally, everybody outside is just high as a fucking kite. So not with us this fine week is Tremendo and Shu. They are in Arizona taking care of business, so they will hopefully be back with us next week. Which is a shame because Shu picked the movie that we're going to be reviewing tonight. Now, Shu's original choice was The Apartment, the Billy Wilder classic starring Jack Lemmon, Shirley MacLaine, Fred MacMurray, which is a great movie, and I haven't seen it in a while. I would have loved to have revisited it. Unfortunately, it had stopped streaming by the time Shu had finally gotten around to make his choice. He'd been planning this for months, apparently. Even when he first heard we were going to do the show, he'd said, "What can I suggest?" And it was going to be The Apartment. Emails were tossed around, and he finally settled on the 1970, to mix things up, he settled on the 1970 classic love story. It officially falls under the classic realm. Love story, starring Ryan O'Neal, Ali MacGraw, and directed by Arthur Hiller. Is that right?
Yeah.
Arthur Hiller? Okay. And so we watched it. It was a movie that I watched once a long time ago. I said, okay, great, I've seen it, and I never need to watch this again, and then Shu throws that sucker at us.
And then
not so fast. You do need to watch it again.
Exactly, yeah. That was his plan. So I watched it, as did the rest of us, and then Shu decides that it's best not to show up. But I will let you know that he did watch it, and he and I were chatting back and forth after he was done watching it, and he felt that it wasn't. He thought it was going to be insufferable and didn't find it as such. So let's go for any. Let's shoot for. God, I don't even know where we start with this one. Actually, Dub, ideas.
Well, I think we could go around and do a sort of round robin, just to get a sense of how much really each of us hated it.
Right. Okay. Okay. So actually, well,
while let's do it this way. While the individual is hating on it, it's up to the other two to try and defend it.
Well, that's an interesting idea. I don't know if that's possible or plausible. I'll tell you what. So, but at the same time, there is something that we did. There is something very important to discuss about this movie contextually, which is the time it was made and its purpose. And right. So without giving anything, just give me on a 1 to 10 scale. Where would you put this really quick? So, Dub, 1 to 10.
On a 1 to 10, I'd probably put it in the 3 to 4 range.
All right. Fair enough. Warren?
Yeah, I think 3 is a good number for this movie.
Yeah. I'll tell you what. I'm going to go 4 only because I think one thing would have greatly improved this movie, though still not made it good, because though Shu felt that it's not a horrible piece of dreck, it comes pretty close. Now, just contextually, 1970 was when it was released. It was nominated for 7 Academy Awards, including Picture, Screenplay, Actor, Actress, musical score, which is the only thing that it won for, which is ironic because all it is the same exact theme played over using different instruments and textures.
Although the one part when not to give anything away.
I will say this right now. In the first 10 seconds of this movie, you know how this movie is going to end, which is one of its dumbest things. So we're going to spoil that right now. So go ahead, Warren.
When he finds out that she's going to die, when the doctor tells him, not her, but him, because I guess 70s medicine's a lot different, where you don't tell the person who's sick that they're sick.
It's still technically 60s medicine. It was probably shot in 69.
Yeah, I'm sure. So when he finds out, he's sort of walking, through the street like in a daze, and there's kind of this weird, like the music is really weird. Where at first I thought it was like a horn from a car, but then I realized that's the score.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, I actually like this section of the music because it feels like it could be in like a thriller from the 70s.
It was the Skrillex remix of the.
It was.
Is what I called
it. But that's what I was wondering. I was like, is this the same piece of music just re-edited in such a way? I mean, there was that thing where I'm like, man, somebody's really honking their horn, and then eventually he's like in someplace else. I was like, oh, okay, no, that's part of the music.
Yeah, no, it was part of the score. Yeah.
Which was I'm gonna inch up to 4 too, because I think you mentioned that part, and I feel like there was a few other moments where I did think there were interesting things going on with the direction. I think anytime it's a whole genre of movie now. And I think you could probably not get above a 5 or a 6 for me in this genre. And that genre is 2 people fall in love and one of them dies. The standard cinema genre at this point, and you could probably name dozens of examples.
Which is as old as time itself. I mean, it's Romeo and Juliet, man. I mean, it's like, you know what I mean?
Romeo and Juliet, they both die.
Sure, fair enough.
One of them die.
Well, okay. How often? Okay, I can't think of the title of the film.
Right.
It was based off a Graham Greene story, and the remake starred Ray Fiennes and Julianne Moore, and directed by Crying Game. Oh my God, I feel horrible.
Neil Jordan.
Thank you, Neil Jordan. And it's that same thing where like they meet, they fall in love, and like in the first 5 minutes, she goes. And you're like, oh, you know where this is going. And it's the consumption, and this is that classic. This is something, it's like there's always that kind of classic thing. She dies of the consumption. They fall in love.
I got the black lung, Pa.
The black lung.
Exactly. Now again, there's you've got other more modern versions of this, like a Titanic.
The 90s had a lot of these movies.
Sweet November.
Yeah, Sweet November, right. There was like a resurgence of a bunch of those.
Yeah, in the early mid 90s, there was a ton.
There was one with Richard Gere and Winona Ryder as well.
Wasn't Val Kilmer in one?
No, he was blind and then got his sight back.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
You're thinking of Blind Fury with Rutger Hauer.
I wanted him to die in that. That's right.
Val Kilmer, the man has chemistry with no one. It's so fascinating.
He barely has it with himself.
Which is odd, which I find very bizarre.
Kiss Bang Bang with Robert Downey Jr.
Oh no, you're right.
You're right. Yeah,
that was a good.
But anyway. I wonder if, just getting back to sort of the set and setting of this movie, I wonder if part of the reason it had such an impact is because they hadn't gone full death before in a movie.
No, I'm sure they have.
Well, and they had to do it. This is post Easy Rider, right?
Right.
And they had to do it in such a way where they didn't. I don't know, because even the last big sort of romantic tragedy I can think of is An Affair to Remember.
Right.
And they didn't go full death on that one, although you kind of get the feeling that's where that movie could head. But they couldn't do it in earlier films. They couldn't pour on that much.
I think you just haven't seen them. I think there's a laundry list of them. I think Douglas Sirk movies probably have quite a few like that. I think it is a classic.
Where that's the whole point of the movie is 2 people fall in love and one of them dies?
Yes.
Ugh. Such a stupid.
It is a stupid because nothing else happened. It was like light. It was just, which I guess is fine, but it was just like wasn't even exciting light,
Right.
It was just kind of like what I guess we're getting into what I felt as I'm watching the movie. It felt like I was watching a Lifetime movie or a made-for-TV movie of some sort, where it's just melodrama, where the whole point was to get an emotion, probably out of a woman, you know, because a guy's not going to sit through
Or
all
a very
that.
girly man.
I mean, I was like, even the hockey scenes in the beginning that were supposed to be exciting, I'm like, that's the worst. I don't even know hockey very well. That's the worst hockey playing I've ever seen. That's all. I was just like, really? Come on.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say it's. I mean, it's definitely what would fall. It would definitely fall under the chick flick vein. I think its modern day successor. I think in a weird way, I think would be the Twilight movies. It's just they've just taken that concept and vampired it up.
Does
because
she die in the end?
She does actually. She dies in. Because the concept,
vampires at least make it better, even if they aren't shiny vampires.
No, that doesn't help this at all. I mean, and again, we're not the target audience for those movies whatsoever. But it's that same, it is that exact same audience that is.
Picture if instead of vampires, you had hockey.
Yeah,
America loved professional sport.
No, you don't have hockey. You have really boring class differences that actually don't exist within the film itself, except in our asshole protagonist's mind.
Instead of vampires, you had law school.
Yeah, right.
Well, Andrew and I were laughing at the hardest when we were sort of doing a pre-talk on this yesterday or Sunday before we went to the movie is how thoroughly stupid and unlikable the main guy is.
He is and that's the funniest part, is that in a movie that's supposed to be like female based, I don't know what they're supposed to, I don't know if it's supposed to be saying something about us, but this guy is the biggest fucking douchebag on the planet. And honestly, this would have been, I would have stand up and cheered if they'd flipped it and he's the one who died. It would have been like, thank God, now she can go live a real life.
She's free.
Yeah, because everything he does comes out of nowhere except some anger that is never, other than simply said, I have problems with my father. His dad seems fine most of the time. I mean,
really,
he never
the problem
does
with your father is you're a dick.
Yeah.
Yeah, like he's a dick to his dad the whole time. I mean, his dad might have been cold and like just with no emotion and stuff like that. But he was just a straight up. He was like Doug on the State, you know?
That's exactly. Yeah. Did I not make that same reference?
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. I'm watching this show. Oliver, solamente Oliver.
He's rebelling against nothing.
Yeah.
You're a millionaire in Harvard.
And it's funny. I also brought up. I watched Dead Poets Society recently, and in Dead Poets Society, you're dealing with. Let's call it the feeder schools to Harvard, right? So you're dealing with this Oliver character, and Dead Poets Society takes place in '58, so it's a little bit before, but the class structure hasn't adjusted that much. It hadn't quite made it through the '60s, but they totally go through the trouble of explaining why there's father-son tension among all the father-son tensions in Dead Poets Society.
Yeah.
Like 201, they go through and explain why each one has problems, and it's real, and you feel it, and it's legit. And in this one, he's like, so, cold weather we're having, huh? Don't tell me how to live my life, Dick!
Yeah, it does almost come off like a weird Ben Stiller sketch. Yeah. And in Dead Poets, you've got a good Kurtwood Smith who knows how to play an asshole.
Right. Oh, he was so good at that.
And so, but hold on here. So let me pull out my napkin notes here. So this is why the movie actually probably could have gone into 6, possible 7 territory.
Ooh.
It has the worst acting ever. It's cardboard, wooden, horrible fucking acting all the way through.
Is it the acting or is it the performances?
I thought it was the dialogue.
Are you going to sit here and badmouth Ray Milland? Is that what we're going to have to sit
Okay, first off, Ray Milland has 6 lines, all of them being, so did you hear back from law school?
I was going to say,
okay. Now,
his lines are, so did you
let me clarify my statement there.
Call for you.
It has the 2 worst lead actors ever, because all of a sudden her father, Ally McGraw's father, comes in.
It's fantastic.
And I wrote down his name because it's Jack Waltz from The Godfather. John Marley. I can't read my own handwriting. John Marley. He comes in, has a scene and a line in a later scene, and knocks it out of the park. He basically
at the end when he said, "I promised you I'd be strong for you," was fantastic.
Yeah, yeah,
I wish I hadn't promised I'd be strong.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
it was so well done.
He was the only one that felt like he was alive. Like everybody else felt like they were in a high school play. Like every line delivery was horrible. And to be fair to the actors, written lines were clunky and weird and like written like they were meant to be poetry, like in some sort of weird way.
Yeah, but the problem was the way it was. It's like if we take that first scene, now it opens with, actually that's not true. It opens with him sitting on this bench at an ice rink, narrating about how she was only 24.
Letting you know what's going to happen.
Yeah, telling you the end of the movie.
And it cuts to the way they met, which is this odd. It comes off as snarky and angry.
Right.
At the
And
library.
lying.
And he's lying, yeah, and he's lying.
He's the worst guy.
But it could have been, if you had two actors with charm, it could have been pulled off. And every scene, because every scene literally has nothing in it except their banter, and this one does deserve the banter quotes.
Yes.
Because it's barely banter. It's really like, how are you? Oh, I'm fine. How are you? How are you?
Well,
I'm good. Fine. How are you?
When the two of them were in the room chatting together, I kept getting my hopes raised because those were the most entertaining. I'm not even going to use the word best. Those were where the movie got closest to being entertaining to me. Is that I did enjoy the writing between the two of them. I did think it had some. I wouldn't have even put it in air quotes. I think there were genuine moments of actual banter going on there. But it was.
But they can't pull it off.
It was never, the actors weren't good, and it was never enough to save the movie.
It's like, in a weird way, I want you to think of, what's the Julia Roberts Dying Young? Sorry, that was
Dying Young, yeah.
But today I was just reading an article on the career of Julia Roberts on the Dissolve, great website. And the thing that popped in my head was Ocean's 11. If you had Clooney and Roberts doing Ocean's 11 back and forth with each other, because they are people that can lie and be snarky and dickish to each other, but it still comes off as charming, and you can see that there's a connection there that makes you feel that it's private talk between two people, that it's almost their own language. And that's something that never lifts. They never are able to pull it off the page with these two characters. And Ally McGraw has this thing where she pauses between every word, like it's almost Shatner, but it doesn't have the cadence. So
I knew
it comes
I was
off
strangely aroused.
Yeah, so it just comes off very flat. This movie made $100 million at the box office.
This is where someone needs to jump in. This is where someone needs to jump in and defend this movie.
Well, and
I feel like it's we're in 1984.
John was defending it. He was saying why it's a 6 versus 7. He was saying
I'm saying is that if you got rid of the two leads, if you had two people with charisma, if you had two people that could act, and Ryan O'Neal has had moments in his career. He's actually very good in The Driver because he doesn't talk a lot. And it's one of those things where if you had put two different actors in here. Then you could have had, again, it wouldn't be at the time Lifetime didn't exist. I mean, a lot Kramer versus Kramer. They're ordinary people. There are tons of movies that would be a Lifetime movie today.
But movies still are more interesting in what happens.
Agreed.
So I think this is why it gets back to this idea where I don't think there were a lot of movies like this at the time. So I don't think people were seeing this kind of elevated banter or hadn't seen it in a while, and I don't think people saw this much emotion, I guess. It felt like they were trying to portray emotion, but my cynical modern eyes weren't necessarily feeling it. And you bring up Ordinary People. Good Lord, that movie is devastatingly effective in terms of dealing with real emotion. And the Sutherland-Field relationship is cold and icy, but it is so human. I mean, you really feel it intensely in that movie. So that's why I wouldn't compare the two. This one felt like so much more fluff. This one felt like the Titanic of its age.
I'm comparing the two because what happened is that a lot of these types of movies, these what we would I guess call adult dramas, these very simple storytelling things that were very common in those days in cinema, is now relegated to something like a Lifetime channel.
But this felt like melodrama. I mean, like this was like kind of over the top the way they spoke and talked to each other and the things that happened. It was like
See, but I don't think it was
almost
supposed
comical. I mean, it wasn't
Yeah.
supposed to be, and clearly nobody took it that way because it caused people to weep, and it was crushing in 1970 and making people upset.
to be. But melodrama was something that was also accepted a lot more then.
Right.
And for some reason, America's like the one country in the world that has for some reason deemed the melodrama unacceptable now, which is weird. Except unless we want it, and that's not true. We want melodrama in our reality shows. That's how we get our melodrama now.
Right.
You know, we get it through reality television because that's all bullshit. There's nothing real about it. But it's that whole but we love that heightened God, you're so dramatic kind of shtick.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think it was. I just think that this type of movie, unless you're making them vampires, unless you're finding a way to sticking them in a genre or putting them on a giant boat and the boat's going to sink, or you've got giant special effects, that's something going on. These movies are very hard to come by nowadays. Now, there's a lot of them probably on the independent circuit. There was, oh God, what's the? I'm trying to think, the Mark II Plus film that just came out, and it's about a couple having relationship issues, but there's an odd science fiction twist to it. With oh my God, I can't think of her name.
Plaza? That one?
Sorry, what'd you say?
With Aubrey Plaza?
No. It's with Elizabeth Moss.
Yeah. I'm not gonna see any more Mark Duplass movies.
And it's even got it even still has like an I still think I love you or I only love you type thing in the title. There's a lot of stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and actually in a weird way, Aaron, actually you kind of tagged it right there, like stuff like Hump Day and other films like that. Yeah. Even though there's a bit of a comic edge to it, this is still those forms of movies. Well, I mean that's another
podcast.
That's a totally different podcast.
Spoiler alert: no, there is no humor in that movie.
Yeah. So agree to disagree. And
I don't agree.
Okay, fair enough. That's not the way I remember it. Let's see. Hold on here. I have a few other notes here that I picked down. He's a prick. That was my first note.
This was such a troubling movie on so many levels.
So okay, they have their first big fight, and of course it is over his father because his father is turning 60. They get a phone call. And she's like, "It's his birthday. We've got to go all over."
No, she calls. She makes the call.
That's right. To reject the thing. Yeah. And she has to lie for him, and she doesn't feel good about that.
No, on the Evite. Come on, it's
right. Contemporize, man.
Yeah, seriously. So, and it would totally be an Evite nowadays. Somebody should really modernize this thing and see where it goes.
I'm sure it has.
But yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're right. They would actually have a cure for her
medical bill would be $5,000.
And they would totally play it. That whole thing when they tell him before her was just. See, I don't even think that could not be real then. I refuse to
believe it was real.
They would.
Did you ever see the first season of Mad Men?
Yeah, that was 1960. This is like 1970. Yeah, I don't buy it. I think they'd tell her first, or at least have her come in.
What were you going to say, though? Where we go?
Sorry, so they fight, and they get into a fight because she has to lie, and she then tries to say he wants you to know that he loves you in his own way, and this gets Prick O'Neill, Oliver, so upset that he tears the phone out of her hand, like that far away from being crazy abusive, and then he storms out, and he comes back, and she's gone, and he goes looking for her.
That's my favorite scene, by the way.
Now, the first place he goes looking for her is a dry cleaner's.
Yes, I was like, it reminded me of like on The Simpsons, where like Homer looks in like the stupidest place, like
yeah, yeah. It's like I'm trying to put myself in his shoes, where it's like in his mind he's thinking,
and I didn't see that.
Yeah. It's like in his mind he's like, well, she had to pick up my dry cleaning today. Maybe she went there first.
Then he goes to the market.
Yeah, it was the worst. It was possibly the worst. And then, of course, the last place he checks before going back home is finally someplace she might actually be, which is
music place.
Yeah.
But what was annoying about that is, if you notice, there was like a score playing during that scene, and then he would open the doors, and the music from the inside the rooms would come out, and you would hear it, and it would kind of mix in with it was this weird sound mix where I was just like, wait, is it getting louder because he opened the doors, or is it getting louder because of like the same sort of music is kind of playing, and it's just
That
like,
stop at the dry cleaners threw me off so much that I was watching it. I was watching it with Barbara, and like halfway through the sequence, I was like, he's looking for her, right?
Yeah.
Like, I was legitimately unsure exactly what he was doing in this part of the movie.
When he got to the dry cleaners, like the first thought I was like, wait, he's going in? Why is he going in the dry cleaners? Why? And then he was in there for a while, and I was like, why is he in there for so long?
We must have missed something. There must have been something near the movie.
Yes, the directors got to explain that. It was all butchered by the producers.
Like maybe she works there, and we just didn't pick up on that.
No, she was a teacher the entire time.
Maybe she owned the dry cleaner.
But her shirt said it was Camp Whack-A-Ho or something like that.
Yeah, that was her summer gig. She needed to work summers as well.
Camp Whack-A-Ho.
But she was at a school, but she was still wearing the Camp Whack-A-Ho shirt.
Well, sure, man, she was hip.
Yeah.
She can't act, but she was hip. Let's see. Even with a degree, because he didn't get into law school. Oh, right. And that was the other. Oh my God. So
Yes.
Here's this rebel prick.
Hubris.
This rebel prick, of course, wants to disown his father. So he and Dad get into a fight, and
what?
Over nothing.
I don't even know what they were fighting about.
And so what happens is he refuses to take his father's money for some reason at this point, or vice versa. Like, I'm no longer your son. You're no longer my son. Or you're no longer my father. You're no longer my son. Off he goes. And so then he goes directly to Harvard and says,
like
my father and I had an issue. Give me a scholarship.
Yeah.
And then Dean smokes a lot. Is pretty.
Yeah, completely.
It's just like that guy was lounging so hard. That was like the hippest Dean of any movie I've ever seen. He's like, really? You know this is Harvard, right?
Give me a moment to light another cigarette with this cigarette.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me just smoke this down to the filter. Okay.
He lights 2 cigarettes. Ryan O'Neal reaches. What are you reaching for?
So even now, but before this, now he has a degree.
And the dean is just as confused as we are.
Oh yeah. The dean. It's like the dean wandered in from a different movie. He didn't get the sides that day or something like that.
Well,
and he's like, really? Is this what's supposed to happen?
We're gonna close down that Alpha House.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, seriously. So he's got a degree. She's got a degree. She, of course, has given up her entire life for him because, that's what women folk are supposed to do.
That's why you don't tell them when they're dying.
Yeah, exactly. Because otherwise they may stop cooking.
Right.
That's what you got to keep them cooking. And the worst part is he comes home and she is cooking.
Yeah. The kitchen was not supposed to be.
Yeah. Even
Which
with
I think was a joke, but it was still like, whoa.
Even with it was it was a gag. It was weird. It was like it was trying to be progressive, but was the most unprogressive movie you could possibly have.
It was like progressive.
One of the things that I do think was probably very appealing about it is, despite their rebel posturing, they were a very conservative couple. They fell in love. They met young. She gave up her life in order to stay at home. She gave up all her dreams just to be with him. Like, it was he was dickish and cold. It was a very conservative couple in a lot of ways. It was actually, I hadn't thought about it before. It was it reminds me of the way people described the appeal of Juno when it came out, which is, while having these sort of very progressive and liberal trappings, it actually was arguing the point of view of a very conservative ideology, which is keep the baby, raise it with both parents. Yeah. It was very pro-life. It just had all of these sort of liberal trappings about it. Maybe this movie was such a crossover hit for the same reason. He got to yell at authority, but he also got to have the patriarchal...
He still got to drive a car that probably would have paid for his law school.
Right.
At one point when he was riding the bike home, I thought he had sold the car. I was like, wow, okay, he sold his car. And then a couple days later, he parked right there with his bike leaning on it. I was like, you could have sold that car and you would have been sitting pretty, because $5,000 is going to take care of all your medical bills. That car would have been worth more than that.
Yeah, so he has some kind of degree. He could have gotten probably a real job, I don't know, at a law firm doing something, right? But instead, he tries to fix boat engines, which apparently he can't fix.
Yeah.
And then Oh, and he sells Christmas trees.
That was awesome.
By the way, an even tougher interview fixing boat engines when you bring your girlfriend with you.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you know, she's got to get she's on her lunch break and we're in love, so I got to bring her to the interview. It's shit like that. It's like you must have some kind of degree. Oh, sorry, one other good actor in it who's got a line. The first film of Tommy Lee Jones as one of his roommates at the top.
Easy there.
What?
Check the credits. That is the first film of a gentleman named Tom Lee Jones.
Oh, sorry.
He went the opposite route of Larry Fishburne,
Yes.
who matured his name into Lawrence Fishburne. He went from Tom Lee Jones to the more childish Tommy Lee Jones.
Who
But he's
still
still a
looks hella
curmudgeon.
old. He looks hella old.
I thought it was
Yeah.
Clint Eastwood. I actually thought it was Clint Eastwood sitting at the table when I first saw it.
Wow.
Like Clint Eastwood now.
He had the same squinty eye thing going on, and he had a little bit of the same like face structure. Go back and watch. Well, you don't have to watch the whole thing. On mute, search forward to that scene and think young Clint Eastwood, like
Yeah.
black and white Clint Eastwood.
By the way, here's how selfish fucking Oliver is. I'm not going to say Ryan O'Neal because I don't know Ryan O'Neal.
You don't want to sully
Ryan
that drug
O'Neal.
addict
Yeah.
with the horrible behavior
Of the character that he
of the
the
played.
characters that he played.
I don't want to, this is, I mean, we're in O.J. Simpson levels of selfishness here. So he finds out that she's going to die. He goes to his father to ask for money, right? And instead of telling the truth, his father goes, did you get a girl in trouble? And he says yes, which I'll tell you what, his dad probably has some connections. If you really want to help your wife, tell Dad. I will bet you Dad will bend over backwards to try to save her life. But then again, since it's mystery disease,
you should suck it up. If you really loved your wife, you would suck it up and kiss your dad's ass, and get him to pull his string.
Yeah.
That whole scene was so bizarre to me. That he asked for the money, and then again, like a Doug sketch, Dad just writes him a check and sends him on his way.
He grabs it. I'll take your money because I asked for it. Yeah.
By the way, I'm a lawyer now and went to Harvard just exactly like you wanted me to. So screw you.
I did everything you wanted me to.
And an incredibly successful lawyer at the age of 24.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's impressive.
I know. So basically, all his dad's dreams have come true. Basically, he hasn't been rebellious at all.
And it didn't cost him a dime.
Zero rebellion there.
He could be stupid rich by writing a lot of checks.
You're right. It didn't cost his dad a single penny to send his son to law school.
You're right. Congratulations, son. You've gotten exactly where I wanted you to be.
You showed me. You really stuck it to me. Now, if you excuse me, I'm going to go move into my new gold house.
You wanted him to have a speech with him like Ed Harris at the end of Snowpiercer? Where it's like, you've done exactly what I've hoped for you to do.
Yeah.
That is the most ridiculous rebellion. Like, how did he hurt his father at all? He did what he wanted.
He's done nothing but hurt himself.
He totally screwed himself over left and right. I'll show you.
And so, the last thing I have to say about this is the doctor tells him first that she's dying of mystery disease. Because they do never say what it is,
We
right?
lost more people of that in the 70s.
I assumed it was cancer. But they talk about white blood cells and stuff.
Right. But never assume. AIDS.
No.
She was the first. She's patient zero. Suddenly it's an
They don't want to say the C word.
Yeah, right. That's right. Not in 1970. But so he goes and gets tickets to go to Paris. And he comes home without telling her yet that she's dying, because she has to find that out on her own, and then still not get mad at him for it.
Right. Hey, it was how things were done.
Yeah, exactly. So, and she says, "I don't want to go to Paris. I just want to spend my last days with you," which could take place in Paris, could take place anywhere, which is the fun
That would
part.
be a nice place to spend out the remainder of your days, I would have thought.
It could, yeah, that would work out pretty well. So this is how they spend the rest of their days together. They walk, okay, fine. She simply sits on a bench and watches him ice skate, That's a lot of good personal time together. And then they go and eat dinner where she says, I think I'd better go to the hospital now. Like, there's no, she doesn't collapse.
Yeah.
She never shows a sign of being sick.
I
Nothing.
see pregnant women get more upset, like, oh, we gotta go to the hospital. Hers is just like,
No, she's like, I'm feeling a little deathy. Is it deathy in here, or is it just me?
Deathy in here? Yeah, I'm feeling. Ooh, check the thermostat. Is it up? Set to death. Oh, phew! Thank God, my God.
Why do we even have that setting on our thermostat?
But yeah, and then 5 minutes later she's dead. Actually, that's not true. I think you've got about 10 more minutes and then
no, because he flies to Boston. He spends however much money to go to Boston.
Right.
Comes back with $5,000 for. I don't know why he needed just.
Medicine was cheap back then, man.
I guess so, but it still cost him a few $100s to fly to Boston, right?
Mm-hmm.
1970. That was probably a lot of money.
Yeah.
Double.
Well, no, I'm sure it was. I'm just saying, you know, get me in a time machine and take me back then when I'm dying. So
all it felt like to me was that was $5,000 was an excuse to get him to go back to his dad, because he is a successful lawyer, you know.
And they can't do anything. Mm-hmm. How much does a body bag cost? I think they're overcharging him.
Sell your car. Just sell the car. That's everything. That's all I kept thinking the entire time. It's like beat up sweaters and stuff like that. Oh, but we're still driving this car, and the car had to be worth a fucking fortune.
That's the other thing I want to mention. So, how horrifically cold were big this movie? Like,
now that would fall under a positive though.
When they're playing around in the slushy, wet snow.
Yes.
It was like, I was describing it like I felt like I was watching a Saw movie where I couldn't watch because the on-screen horror was so unspeakable. It was
what she died of? Frostbite.
It's getting down the neck. It's getting down the neck of your shirt. No, turn it off.
Frostbite.
Oh, it was so horrible.
Yeah, but again, there's a lot of good atmosphere in it. That's another solid point.
Yeah. I think Hiller did as good a job as you could have done with this lackluster material.
Considering there wasn't a lot there, yeah. No, except for the weird, creepy love scene, which wasn't much of a love scene.
There was a weird when he takes her back to meet her parents, and they go there, and then they sit down, and then he gets up, like, let's go, and then they're driving away, and it's like, why'd you want to leave so soon? But it cuts back to stuff that really. What? I
enjoyed that.
I thought it was weird to me. It was a weird timing, the way everything was kind of going back. It just didn't feel.
Any time the director could do something to make this brain dead story more interestingly presented, I enjoyed. And I think
they could have done much more with that.
On one occasion.
I think it's because, and that's the thing. I think because they only do it once in the movie, it feels really out of place.
Well, there's that moment. There's the moment of the horns that Warren was talking about earlier, and I feel like there's just the whole book ending concept that's going on. I feel like he did what he could to try and not make this two people having an extended conversation until one of them decides it's time to go die.
Right.
Literally.
Yeah.
He polished the turd as best he could.
Yeah.
But it was
I was impressed as I was watching it with what he was able to do. And I thought the love scene was pretty good. And I thought I don't know. I didn't think she was as terrible as Santo.
Yeah, I thought she was horrific.
My favorite, but.
Yeah, I found her very out of
feel back and forth.
Taco truck.
Taco time.
You're running late.
I think the back and forth. It felt like they wanted it to be like His Girl Friday or something like that. You know, like snappy dialogue, and they're talking back and forth.
Right.
But I never really felt their connection. Like while I'm watching it, I thought of the movie like The Quick Romance. Kind of reminded me of the movie True Romance, where they like kind of got together.
Right.
That romance was more believable to me than this one. Like they felt like a better couple than Oliver and.
Maybe this is just.
True Romance is a great. True Romance. I'm sorry, I stand by is a great fucking film. That's actually probably.
It is, but I'm saying like this. It was the same sort of like kind of instant love almost.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can start out your love story that way, but the pressure is on you to make it believable. And True Romance totally did it. By the end of the movie, you know these two people were sort of meant for one another.
Yeah, they
In
were
Love
the yin and yang.
Story, it was the only way she was going to be free is to die.
Yeah, that's basically that's she. It wasn't she. It was suicide actually.
He's in a much better place now.
Yeah.
I've never seen anybody give themselves cancer, but apparently she did.
One of the non-linear sequences they cut out is Oliver leaves and she just starts drinking Drano.
Apparently, she has injected herself with radioactive isotopes.
Yeah. She's been hanging out in the X-ray room at the hospital day in and day out. Every time she's not around Oliver, she's like, it's the only way I can get out of this.
At her ovaries, he will not have these.
Yeah, the school she worked at was a radiology school.
Yeah. That'll teach her.
But maybe this is wasp love. You know, maybe there's cold, distant people watching this with a fluttering tear duct at the end.
That was the one thing that I did think of is the so in Annie Hall, Woody Allen is walking around, Alvy Singer is walking around trying to figure out why how relationships work, and he runs into a couple, and one of them's like, well, I'm very shallow and have nothing original to say. And he's like, oh, so you guys have worked something out then. That's this couple. That's this
They worked it out.
them. Yeah. It's totally that couple turned into a 2-hour movie. Minus the good sunglasses. But
it was an hour and 40 minutes. I made sure to keep track of that time.
Yeah, it seemed a little long to me.
Yeah, that felt really long.
I'll admit, I was playing my Simpsons tapped out game while it was.
I started playing Civilization, which is normally a game that can take you weeks to play around, but I happen to have been playing it for weeks, and I won in the middle of the movie, so I was like, crap. I gotta go sit down and watch this garbage now.
I've got
For me, it was like watching an eclipse, where I needed like a pinhole. Like I didn't want to look directly at it because it would have burned my retinas.
Where is the television without pity recap when I need it?
Really? Okay, so we've torn this thing apart pretty much.
I want to get someone. I want to find someone who liked this movie. I want to get one.
This is why I wish
something.
This is why I wish Shu was here, because I think that he may have some kind of odd defense for it, and he's a man who
as full of odd defenses.
Through his girlfriend has been able to watch tons of Lifetime over the past couple years, so he may have some sort of interesting defense for it. The one thing he kept saying to me was that it was not insipid as he expected, as insipid as not as insipid. He expected it to be insipid, but it was not. Was one of a direct quote from him.
Go on.
So perhaps next week he can. We'll let him do a 5-minute rant on it to kind of let us know where he stands on it.
All right.
Also, I had to look because I couldn't believe this thing was nominated for Best Picture. But it was the same year that Airport was nominated for Best Picture. So that's your that's your realm. Patton won for 1970.
Okay, good.
Well, that was the and Santo could probably speak to this more than any of us. It was a very transitional time.
Yes.
For Hollywood, going from the 60s into the 70s, it was sort of wasn't that the end of the studio system, and Easy Rider had just come out.
68 was a big kick in the pants because that was the year that
Bonnie and Clyde.
It was Bonnie and Clyde, The Graduate, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, In the Heat of the Night, and oh my God, not Dr. Dolittle. No, Dr. Dolittle. And there's even a book about it, Movies at a Revolution, which is a really fascinating book that covers the making, release, and those five nominees, and kind of showing how the Hollywood system was really changing at that point. And you're right, this was a very interesting transitional period that was taking place. Though, I'm one of these people that definitely do this. I love cinema from 68 to 77, that era, and actually up to 81, I guess, is kind of for me that taper little area. It's very much like for me, film noir goes from like 41 to 56, 58, depending on how you want to kind of throw in those last couple movies. Because this was the where the director really came in and started ruling the roost. During the 70s, you started getting a lot more personal films made and a lot of stuff like that. But if you really start looking at the Academy Awards, it's interesting that I tout this era as being such, Hollywood was so different then, but big money makers were still films like Earthquake and Airport, and there were
Right,
these
right.
there were still these blockbusters in an odd way that were big time cinema. Now none of them have been able to hold on to have become the classic status that we hold the other movies that came out during that era. Something that's kind of comparable to it is the 90s in an odd way, because the 90s, if you look at kind of blockbuster cinema, you've got your Terminator 2, you've got your Jurassic Park, you've got a few that are scattered throughout it, but what the 90s is mostly remembered for are your Pulp Fictions and Piano, a lot of the Miramax era, the rise of independent film.
Yeah.
During the 90s and so it's the 70s is kind of comparable in that way, but I believe a lot of us cineasts and moviegoers and stuff like that, and nerds and geeks, whatever, really kind of look at the 70s with a certain rose-colored glasses. And if we were to probably do a very kind of general spectrum of what was big, you would still have your, and again, you had The Exorcist and Jaws and stuff like that, but you would still have, like I said, your Earthquakes and your Towering Infernos, your Irwin Allen movies, stuff like that, were the kind of blockbusters of their time. Those were still being made. Those still very much they still very much made a ton of money, and they existed. But the movies that really clung onto the culture, and the ones that stuck and carried forward, were your I don't want to say independent minded, but your more auteur driven movies.
Sure. Well,
sorry.
Well, I was going to say, I wonder if, once the blockbuster era came in, the amount of money sort of by default defined, what movies were remembered.
Sure. And but also what's kind of odd is however much I love The French Connection, in an odd way, The French Connection is just a great action movie. It's of 1971, right? And it was only a couple of years after that you'd have The Exorcist. A couple of years after that you'd have Jaws. So again, it's interesting that big studio thing never went away. It's just a lot of other films were able to get through and hold on to the public consciousness.
Well, it's one of the things I always tell people who sort of when I hear people bitching about movies today,
right?
Or it's that general complaint. It's that you're just not looking hard enough. There are like 150 movies released every weekend, and they're not all Adam Sandler stars in blended.
Yeah.
Like there were probably 8 or 9 movies you would have loved that came out that same weekend. It's just people didn't have the money to get them in front of you, so you gotta hunt it down. Actually, I want to point something out real quick while we're talking about movies of the 70s, and while you specifically mentioned The Exorcist, I just saw this was really cool that Friedkin tweeted. You follow Perfect Shots?
Yes.
They just tweeted this.
Oh, nice.
And then Friedkin corrected them. I don't know if you can read that, but they tweeted that shot, and then he said,
"Oh, that's great."
Yeah, I just thought that was super cool.
That's great.
Oh, they made the screen sharing a lot easier to turn off. Yeah, there we go. Oh, laser and
there we go. Nice. Yeah. So, and there was some other little point that I wanted to mention in there, but I can't remember what it was.
But yeah, I think there's always good movies around.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Especially today when there's a lot. I mean, just in the past couple months, Blue Ruin came out on VOD. So anybody, and another movie called Coherence. These are really interesting, tiny genre films. Blue Ruin was a success at the Cannes Film Festival, and then unfortunately gets a very limited release now because we are in this giant comic book tentpole kind of mindset theatrically. But there's always a great movie floating around out there that's come out that weekend or within the past couple weeks that you can easily check out. And no, you're right. I think it's because we're being flooded with more movies. That doesn't mean we're having more great movies. They're just a little on the harder, tougher side to find. But they can still be fine. They are out there. So let's wrap this thing up. Where do you feel? Okay, so where do you feel this falls, Dub? Within I don't even want to say who do you recommend this to per se, but it's like, is this something that needs to be seen? I guess in an odd way, why watch this movie?
I suppose you would watch this movie if you were like a coma patient or in some ways quadriplegic and couldn't get to the remote. That would be a sufficient motivation. No, you're probably looking for a real answer. I
It
think
doesn't matter if that's where you want to
I
go.
think people looking for a good tragedy. I think first of all, it just is granted that the three of us are not the demographic they were shooting for when they made this movie. I might say anyone who enjoyed Titanic. If you're a fan of the genre in which two people fall in love and one of them dies, then you might like this movie. Now, when I think of that genre, this is something I was gonna mention earlier. When I think of that genre, there is an example in it that is a little bit different, which is Terms of Endearment, which which plays the whole it treats the whole concept of death and grief. Steel Magnolias too. It treats the whole concept of death and grief with a little more maturity, and it casts a little broader net than just the person who was sleeping with that person.
I think you need to say more than a little more maturity, a lot more mature.
Yes, I was being generous in deference to
I mean, love story is kindergartners throwing tantrums.
Yeah, and
at least with
and that's why I brought up. So I was talking about it with I saw it with Barbara, and neither of us liked it, which is that's my girl. And
see, I would have thought she would have liked it.
And we were talking about it with her mom, and we were like, maybe there's something we don't get. Maybe there was something about the period of time. Maybe there was whatever. No, her mom didn't like it either. Thought it was silly and thought it was kind of garbage. So because I had chalked it up to the whole Bullet idea. That when I finally saw Bullet, I was like, I've seen this 10,000 times on every other TV cop show. I've seen better chases. I've seen better this. I've seen better tough detectives. The sergeant yells at him for, you gotta go buy the book or I'm taking you off the case kind of thing. Like, it was so filled with cliches, but you have to realize this was the first time those cliches were done. That's why
it was not a cliche.
That's why I keep grabbing at this straw that maybe this was the first sort
Genesis.
Yeah, Genesis. This was where the tragedy genre, maybe it made its first crawl up out of the sea and sprouted some flippers that made it walk on land a little bit. But
yeah, no, I think it's a genre. I think it's existed since the dawn of time, the dawn of cinema, the dawn of storytelling. Pretty much, I'm sure that's been a trope that's been used.
You gotta find some examples because
I would. Yeah, you know what? I would. God, I don't want to find examples. Okay, I'll find examples real quick.
All right.
By
the way, if you guys were wondering, I just tweeted out a YouTube link to Andy Williams singing the Love Story theme.
Oh, good. Sorry, it had lyrics?
It did, and I always remembered when the theme started. I don't know where I heard it. If I had to guess, I would say it was on The Simpsons at some point, since that's where I got most of my culture. But
are you sure it wasn't Born Free?
Maybe that's where I heard the theme, too.
When I heard the theme, and I heard him start by saying, where do I begin to tell the story? I heard, where do I begin to tell the story of us? And I didn't know the words, but maybe Chevy Chase sang it in something. Maybe like it was, I got it third hand as a cultural reference. But if you want to hear Andy Williams singing it himself, you can follow me on Twitter.
Okay, so unfortunately, unfortunately, this is all listed off of Yahoo Answers because it was the first hit. So it's all more modern crap, which is kind of a bummer.
Right.
So let's see. P.S. I Love You, My Life, Ghost, Romeo and Juliet, Hamlet, Dying to Live, The Notebook, What Dreams May Come, Titanic, Atonement, Cold Mountain, Pearl Harbor, Walk to Remember, Sweet November, that was that movie. Autumn in New York. Sweet November and Autumn in New York. Those were the two.
Yeah.
Richard Gere and the whatever. Don't forget Love Story.
Summer for people with crappy taste in movies.
The bad power ranking, romantic movies that make you cry, 50 saddest movie love stories. Okay, let's see what we got going on here. Okay, The Fly. Right. These are all. See, here's the problem with the internet.
What kind of web pages are you going to?
Wait,
that was Total Film of all places. Okay.
Story, The Fly.
I don't know what movies that make you cry. Chaplin, City Lights, Terms of Endearment, The Elephant Man, It's a Wonderful Life. No, a Chaplin movie. Curious Case of Benjamin Button, Green Mile. See, the problem is all of these because with nobody pays. Well, this is just sad movies. I'm running through The Notebook.
The saddest movie, just to throw it out there, I think, in my opinion, might be Fearless, the Peter Weir movie. Have you seen
Oh my
that?
God, I've been bringing that up because I saw Dead Poet Society recently, and I saw it with a group of people, and none of them had seen Fearless.
Ooh,
Hmm.
just make them cry. It'll just make them cry.
It's so good, and so I was thinking about that. Like I've been thinking about that movie recently because I used to have a copy, but it wasn't widescreen, so I believe I actually just threw it in the trash.
Right.
Sit on it.
There's only one place for you.
Yeah. Oh no. You know what? I just realized the new love story is what was the one that just came out this summer based off the YA book with the two kids with
Fault
cancer.
in Our
So you got
Stars.
Fault in Our Stars. Thank you.
Yeah,
Which is a
I'm telling you,
horrible
it's a
fucking
genre
thing.
now. It is
No,
love
it's
story.
no, it's not a genre now. It's a genre I think that's always been. The problem is we have forgotten everything up until the last 10 years about what movies these were. Because
Hold
I
on one
guarantee you.
I think
Yeah.
the problem is I've never actually gone out to see any of these movies.
Oh, completely. No, and that's the thing is that we are not the
We're not the audience.
group
We're
here.
not
We're not
even
the
neighbors of
audience.
the audience. We're not
No.
anywhere near the audience.
No, 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 no. The weepies, these weepies have existed since forever, and and it's just not something that's within our range. And I think that's one of the nice things about Shu bringing this up is that it reminds us of a definite hole we have in our cinematic vocabulary, which for better or worse, because it would be kind of curious to know which ones of these are good and are bad.
I'm okay with that whole though. Like I feel okay. Like I'll admit I was fighting watching this movie tooth and nail. It's like on the thing just like and basically all those weepy love story movies are all movies that I have no desire to see. Not even like a little bit or not even out of curiosity.
Sure.
Like I saw this out of pure work. Like it felt like my job. I needed to watch this for this podcast and I needed just to do it.
That's why we pay you the big bucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And see, and that's where
$5,000.
And that's where I would say, yeah, exactly. It cost you $5,000, Dad. Because I knocked a girl up, which means an abortion cost $5,000. Then
Yes, that's a lot for even 1970.
70. Yeah, I don't know what that like. Are you paying her off to go away? What's the deal here?
That's kind of how I took it.
But you know what? But and I think that is probably why I might recommend this movie. And again, it's not. I'm not saying this is not a good movie. I think I've made it very clear that I don't like this film. But at the same time, if you are a person who wants to understand film cinema or film history kind of in a complete form, this was, $100 million. To make $100 million in 1970, that is not an easy chore. And we're not talking foreign sales here either. This is a domestic $100 million box office haul.
I'm telling you do that by giving people something they haven't seen before.
Yeah, no, I think it's well, also it was based off a best-selling book, so you had that, much like Fault in Our Stars. Fault in Our Stars we've seen before,
Yeah.
but it's that thing where, what's that?
Did you see Fault in Our Stars?
Oh yes, I did. Yeah, oh yeah, it's horrible.
My understanding is that what
tasteless.
Fault in Our Stars has going for it is that the person you think who's gonna die doesn't quite die at the end.
Yeah, no, yeah, and that's the whole thing. It's M. Night Shyamalan's love story. But I'll tell you what though, it is something though that is, if you were to compare Fault in Our Stars to Love Story, it even however much I don't like it, the thing that at least kept me there and not groaning and moaning the entire time is that you got Shailene Woodley and this other kid who are actually pretty solid off of each other, have a nice chemistry, and are able to banter and are able to do that thing. And that's exactly what Love Story to me was missing. And that's, and again, I don't know if it's a part of the times, if no, because we already had natural acting in the 70s. That's
right.
bogus.
Yeah.
It's, but so as a, so I would say as a, I bet that, I'm sure that Love Story is not the first of this genre, but it is a keystone in this genre.
Right.
It is because of its box office haul, because of its place with the Academy Award nominations and everything else like that. It is somehow because of the theme song, which the music is the only Oscar that it did win, which to some extent you'd have to say okay. Although why not Patton? But come on, that's got to be better than honk 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 honk. But it is a curio of cinema history that after 90 minutes of your time, no, you're not going to get that 40 minutes of your time, you're not going to get it back. You may have a couple chuckles at it, you may, but at least you'll be able to say, okay, that's something, and you won't be able to, and you
You're selling it hard.
I know. Well, the
You
thing
could
is,
say at the end of it that you have indeed seen a movie.
well, and you can also, like, looking at these lists that I was just looking at, none of them going back more than 10 years. At least you'll be able to say, have something go. There's something before that. You can see an evolution taking place here to some extent, or lack of evolution in this genre, if that works for it. Because it's, again, the problem with these types of movies is you know where it's going, and you know that it is going to. Oh, My Life. Remember the Michael Keaton one?
Yeah.
But that was for the guys. So you've always had that type of movie where exactly where it's going. You know it's going to be blatant manipulation of the heartstrings, and I think it's how they go about manipulating you is an interesting way to see it. Is the way to watch it. Is it heavy with music? Is it heavy? What tools do they use to manipulate you to get you to that moment where you bawl your eyes out at the end?
Because I was thinking about what I would want from a movie like this, because we're fairly lucky in that none of us have really dealt with anything like this. And if I had, what would I want from a movie like that? And I guess I would want to see the post-death experience dramatized more than the pre-death experience.
That's your Oliver coming out, though. It's all about the guy that lives.
Right, but then show me Oliver's next 2 or 3 years. Like, show me the 5 stages of grief on film. I don't think I've seen that. I've seen a
whole
lot
other movie. That's different. That's not love story. That's like post love story.
Right.
Well, wasn't there a love story too, or something like that, made for TV? I feel like there was.
Not.
I think there was. I would swear there was something like that.
That may be the saddest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah. Look, give that a look. My gut's telling me that there's like a love story.
That's the worst movie I ever heard.
So that's where I would come up on this.
Story 2.
Oh, let's hear it.
Straight to video, 2005. Oh no, this is some sort of.
Yeah, that's not it. Yeah, I would have. I thought there was like some NBC Sunday night movie or something like that.
Bull made it or something.
No, not that bad. But so in terms of cinematic history, it has a purpose as a lasting piece of cinema that shows something about the human condition, other than looking at the audience that went to go see it and going, "Oh, that was interesting. It appealed to people." That's really all it still has to offer.
All right, next week.
So next week, let's.
But you didn't want to know if I'd recommend it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry.
My guess was no. I thought you.
No, I would not recommend this to anybody. I don't think there's any intrinsic value to this at all. There's just nothing. There's nothing to it. I felt, there were times when I was watching this going, I feel like I'm watching a '70s porno without the sex. And it was just kind of upsetting. And I feel like you could probably get better from another movie. Yes, it has a place in history, but. I don't feel comfortable recommending this to anybody.
Fair enough. I don't know if you would want to see the sex in the '70s porno film.
I've seen that, and that would have been more interesting.
Yes. I like nature films.
Yeah, I know.
So I was originally, for next week's movie, I was originally going to go with The Witchfinder General, aka The Conqueror Worm, but I've decided I'm gonna help Warren out here a little bit in an odd way. French film from 2012 called Sleepless Night. It is an action genre film that's basically, this is going to sound weird when I say this, it's basically kind of almost a Die Hard in a nightclub, and you're going to go, what? But before we started the show, we were talking about The Raid and The Raid 2, and I had thought about the kitchen fight in The Raid. Sleepless Night has a fantastic kitchen fight. So it's a police. It's about a dirty cop who gets into some trouble and has to deal with some gangsters at a nightclub. That's all I'm going to say about it. It's about an hour and a half, hour 40. So we are going to watch next week. We're gonna do a little mishmash here. We're gonna throw a little bit of world travel with genre here, and we're going to go to France to watch Sleepless Night, streaming on Netflix. So everybody wears berets and has pencil mustaches. That's how they do it. It all takes
I think
place.
we can do that in this hangout. Hold on a second.
No, he's gonna look for that
No,
stupid
come
thing.
on, don't ruin it.
So yeah, so he's so
You're gonna have to wrap this up before I find it.
yeah, so
I will ruin this.
all right, so you're gonna find Dub at Film Geek Dub. You're gonna find
Yes.
Warren at
You're gonna
Warren
find
Graff,
me there.
and you are gonna find me at John Santo.
No.
Yep.
No,
You-
that
you
didn't
turned
work
off my
out.
thing.
Sorry.
There we go. You
Sorry.
will find me at John Santo. I'm not
All right.
to him. We will see you next Tuesday. Good luck. Talk to you then.